If you can get just 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up nearly 38 times better by the time you're done. Hello to all viewers of my channel. Now that statistic, it might sound kind of crazy, right? But it's the stone-cold mathematical reality of compounding. Today we're going to dig into how this one simple idea can completely change your life.
Welcome. In today's explainer, we are breaking down the science of small changes to give you a real practical guide for hacking your habits and getting some truly remarkable results.
So let's start with a big question. Why do we fail so often when we try to make lasting changes? Well, the problem isn't usually our ambition, it's our approach. We go for these massive, overnight transformations that are just impossible to sustain. You know, the real issue isn't a lack of willpower, it's our strategy. We try to go from 0 to 100 in a single day. And what happens? We burn out, we get discouraged, and we slide right back into our old patterns. And this, right here, illustrates the point perfectly. Think about it. A tiny little course correction when a plane takes off. You'd barely even notice it. But over the thousands of miles of a cross-country flight, that tiny change means you end up in a completely different city. Our habits are exactly the same. This is the power of compounding. But you got to remember, it's a double-edged sword. A 1% improvement every day leads to some incredible growth. But a 1% decline, that can be just as devastating in the other direction. At the end of the day, it's the sum of our small daily choices that decides where we land.
So how do we actually harness this power for ourselves? Well, to change our habits, we first have to understand how they're even formed in the first place. And it all comes down to a simple, 4-step loop that our brain just runs on autopilot.
This is what psychologists call the habit loop. It's pretty straightforward. First, there's a cue that triggers your brain. That leads to a craving, which is the motivation. Then comes the response, the habit itself, and finally the reward, which satisfies the craving. This simple loop is running our lives every single day, mostly without us even noticing.
Now here's the key. For a habit to really stick, all 4 of these stages have to be locked in. If any single part of that chain breaks, the habit just won't form. But if we can learn to engineer this loop, we can finally take control of our behavior. And this brings us to a super practical framework for hacking that habit loop, based on the work of James Clear. These are called the 4 laws of change, and they give us a systematic way to build the habits we want and break the ones we don't. These 4 laws are our toolkit, and look how perfectly they line up with the habit loop. To build a good habit, you make the cue obvious, you make the craving attractive, you make the response easy, and you make the reward satisfying. And if you want to break a bad habit, you just flip them, make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. Let's see how this actually works. Okay, let's dive into some real-world examples. This is where you can see how just a few simple tweaks to our environment and our approach can lead to some seriously big results.
All right, law number 1. Make it obvious. This is all about your environment. Your surroundings are just filled with cues that trigger your habits. So if you want to eat healthier, don't hide the fruit in the fridge, leave a big bowl of it right on the counter. Want to watch less TV? Make the cue invisible. Unplug it after you use it. Take the batteries out of the remote. You're literally designing your world for success.
Dr. Ann Thorndike proved this brilliantly. She didn't lecture anyone. She didn't try to persuade them. She just rearranged the cafeteria refrigerators to make water the most obvious choice. And what happened? People started drinking more water, just because the cue was right there in their face. It's that simple.
Here's another incredibly powerful way to make a habit obvious. Create a super clear plan. Studies have shown you are way more likely to actually do something if you state exactly when and where you're going to do it. So a vague goal like "I'll run more" becomes a concrete plan. I will run for 2 miles on Monday at 7 a.m. at the park. See the difference? There's no room for debate.
Okay, law number 2. Make it attractive. This brings us to a really cool technique called temptation bundling. There's a story about an engineering student who hacked his exercise bike so that it would only play Netflix if he was cycling at a certain speed. It's brilliant, right? He linked something he needed to do, exercise, with something he wanted to do, watch Netflix.
Now for law number 3, make it easy. This one is huge. We humans are fundamentally wired to conserve energy. So the easier a habit is, the more likely we are to do it. And the key here is the 2-minute rule. You scale down any new habit so that it can be started in less than 2 minutes. So, read before bed just becomes read 1 page. Go to the gym becomes put on my running shoes. You're just making it ridiculously easy to start.
And that brings us to the final law, which is arguably the most important of all. Make it satisfying. You see, for a habit to stick, it has to feel good. In Karachi, a researcher got a 52% reduction in diarrhea among kids, not with some big educational campaign, but by simply providing a really nice, pleasant-smelling soap that made hand-washing feel like a satisfying experience.
The problem with a lot of good habits is that the reward is delayed. You don't see the benefit of saving money or going to the gym for months or years. So you have to find a way to reward yourself right now. This couple's strategy was perfect. Every time they skipped eating out, they got that immediate dopamine hit of seeing their vacation funds grow. That's what keeps you on track.
So all of this leads us to a really crucial mindset shift, the difference between goals and systems. And here's the thing, focusing only on the goal, on the finish line, can actually hold you back.
Just think about it for a second. Every single athlete at the Olympics wants to win the gold medal. They all have the exact same goal. So what's the difference? What separates the winner from everyone else is their system, their daily practice, their nutrition, their recovery plan. If you just focus on building a good system of habits, the results will literally take care of themselves. Goals are for setting a direction, but systems are for making progress.
And this leads us to the most powerful idea of all. True, lasting behavior change is really identity change. The ultimate goal isn't just to achieve something, like reading a book. The real goal is to become someone, to become a reader.
You see, every single action you take is like a vote for the type of person you are becoming. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Who do you want to become? And what is the one tiny 1% change you can make today to start casting a vote for that person? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you got something out of this, subscribe to the channel and give it a like. And while you're at it, suggest some topics you'd like to see in future videos. Thanks for watching.